Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to KLM 2024 Kingdom Lifestyle Masterclasses, hosted by NCF and presented by none other but Pastor Nish Singh. And we're so blessed to be here tonight, and we're so excited. We were looking forward to this, and who would have known that this would be our second one so quickly? And so we're so excited. And I just want to share this quote before I open up in a word of prayer. Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further than others, it is only because I've stood on the shoulders of giants." And so tonight, we're so blessed and privileged as a church and as a family, and for all of you that are streaming, and or wherever you're streaming us from, and whoever is here, from wherever you've come from, welcome. Thank you for investing in yourself. Your greatest asset is yourself. And so it's so powerful to see people that take the time and the initiative and invest in themselves. And so the next 3 nights promises to be amazing. We have a giant in industry, a specialist in a field that's going to be teaching us, empowering us, and stirring us up. And as a pastor of this great church and many businesses that we lead, let me say I've come to sit and to be fed and to be empowered. There's no problem with spiritual knowledge in the house of God. There's no problem with revelation. But where Christians lack and where people generally lack is to become skilled in the marketplace. And so we're so blessed and privileged to have this specialist, this individual in our midst. And you know, family, the Bible's clear that you can be right in the midst of greatness, and you can miss the day of your visitation. May it never be said amongst us that we were right there and we missed. And so with those thoughts in mind, I want to officially open up KLM 2024, and I want to open up in a word of prayer. Join with me online and join with me in person. Our blessed God and our Heavenly Father, thank you that we can approach your throne in the name of Jesus. And we thank you for KLM 2024. We thank you for Nish, for Pastor Nish, who will be presenting these 3 nights and impacting us with a great deposit of knowledge so that we can be better versions of ourselves. Thank you for all the attendees. Thank you for all those that are in person and online. And may it be explosive in our spirits, the knowledge that we will receive. And you said, Father, with all our getting, we must get understanding. So as knowledge is shared and imparted from a life lived and manifested, I thank you that understanding will come, that we will be those tools that will become sharp, threshing sledges, ready to reap this end-time harvest to the glory of God. And if you believe that with me, shout amen. Thank you.
Pastor Nishi wears many hats. As a businesswoman ruling in the marketplace, she serves as Managing Director of NSP Consultants and Executive Director of Isidingo Security Services. Having a business career spanning over 2 decades, she also sits on various boards and committees. With a core focus on strategic turnaround solutions and corporate governance, she is notably also a self-confessed polymath and lifelong learner, having accumulated several qualifications such as Certified Director with IODSA, Business Rescue Practitioner, Board Advisor, BEE and Compliance Advisor, Speaker at business events, and forms part of an advisory panel of C-suite executives that service the African continent. Amidst her active business life, she serves as part of the senior leadership at New Covenant Fellowship, together with her husband, Pastor Anu Padiachi, having succeeded the late Dr. Basil Trine. Her greatest fulfillment thus far is having raised 2 champions, Kiara Zoe and Caitlin Grace. Pastor Nishi lives by her motto, no excuses, just results.
Thank you. Well, I don't know where she is, but you get me tonight, and I hope that's okay. Please take your seats. I am so excited to be back on the stage, to be back with a group of people that are absolutely serious about doing more, being more, and having more. So give yourselves a round of applause for being that group of people. I don't want to sound like a cult, but how many of you were here last year? So you are my KLMers, and you are those that are on a journey to greatness. And I'm just so excited to be back here this year with you. We've got a lot to unpack, so we're going to get right into it in a moment. Every single one of you are super special. You know that, right? But if you would just allow me tonight to just highlight one person very quickly, and then I'll move on, and that's Chantel. Oh, my darling, you make my heart leap to see you. Okay, let's get into it. You know we girls can get mushy, so that one's done. You would have seen, if you watched the topics displayed earlier today, for those of you that are privileged enough to be on the NCF family group, and if you're not, there's room for you. So just speak to one of our pastors and we'll be sure to get you on that group. But I just wanted to say this. If you look at it, you might be tempted to think, oh, not the soft stuff again. Oh, that's not for me. I've heard that before. Why do we have to go there again? Why can't it be something a bit more substantial, a bit more complex, a bit more complicated? So I invited somebody this evening before I go into my first session to help me tell you why this is exactly what it is we should be unpacking. Thank you, Sadeo.
Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's the simple philosophy that changed my life forever starting age 25. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living, which is fine. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune, which is super fine. Everything changed for me when I understood this philosophy. I didn't mind working hard on my job, but things didn't seem to change that much. Then I started working hard on myself to qualify. So let me put it in a philosophical phrase now. This is worth the price of whatever it costs for you to be here today. Here it is. Success is something you attract by becoming an attractive person. Success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by becoming attractive.
The gist of what Jim Rohn, one of the greatest US entrepreneurs and motivational speakers of his time, said. That, you see, you can get better at your job, as he said, but it'll only take you so far. You upskill, you learn more so you can, understand better, etc. But until you become that person that attracts success, the ceiling that you set is always going to be very low. And I'm going to walk you through that for the next 3 days. And if there are any skeptics amongst us, I'm quite confident that you would have been won over by the end of it. In order to know where you want to go, you have to first identify where you are. And I find that every single one of us, it doesn't matter how great you are, it doesn't matter how ordinary you are, every single one of us, if we look at our own world, it's actually a very, very small world. Just think about that. Your family, your job, your business, your community, your society, your country is only a microcosm of this massive universe that you are a part of, whether you thought of it like that before or not. So I want to open the session this evening by I've gone to the market, I've researched it for you, I've put it all together for you, and I'm just going to present it to you this evening. What is that? I want to start with giving you a global perspective of what is high on the trending list for 2024. Would you like to know? Why is it important? And as I talk through each one with you, you'll start grasping it more and more, why this is actually very important. You see, you sitting here tonight in Durban, KZN, South Africa, on the African continent, may think that you're very unaffected by the fluctuation in the pound or the US dollar, if you will. You may think you're very unaffected by the price of oil, whether it's going up or it's going down. But tomorrow, you're going to go back to normal life. You're going to go to the service station to fuel up your car. So you are actually affected by the price of oil. You're going to go into the shops, and you are going to exchange your money for goods and services that you need to survive, to thrive, to feed your families, to sustain yourselves. And all of that, the price of things, the cost of living, is very much regulated by the superpowers of the world and what their currencies are doing. So never ever think that you're unaffected. It doesn't matter what they do in that part of the world, because I may never leave the shores of Durban, let alone South Africa. It actually does affect you. And this is the first thing I want to just open your minds to the reality of this evening. So let's get into it. The first one is, the theme of this year's masterclass is capacity. And I don't want to unpack that too much, so we're just going to skip right past it. But I want you to say the word. There, the pronunciation is listed for you. Capacity. Can you say that? Capacity. And just really feel yourself getting bigger on the inside. You are here to increase your capacity. You know, just feel some oomph when you say it. Just know that, you know what, I thought I could handle a lot, but after the next 3 days, my capacity is going to have expanded. We're going to talk about what it is, how to increase it, and more importantly, why that matters. First, you need to understand the world you live in, where you go, in order to understand where you're headed. So let's get into those trends I spoke about. The first one is the AI revolution. I mean, from the youngest whoever you are to the oldest whoever you are. Anyone didn't hear about AI before? Point made, right? So the AI revolution is taking the world by storm, and people have very mixed emotions about it. Some feel uncertainty and fear. It's going to take my job. It's going to make me redundant. We're going to deal with higher unemployment. We're going to have a world run by robots, and all the rest of it. And then there's a group of thinkers who believe it's going to create massive opportunity to make life easier, to help us live longer. And by the way, it's making great strides in the healthcare industry. I'm just going to drop this one in for free. I read that for 2024, the new going out is sleeping in. And I quite like that. So there you go. And parents, you can thank me later. So that's the AI revolution for you. Then the second one, and one that I'm extremely passionate about, is climate change. Here, every single one of you, as long as you're part of planet Earth, you are affected by climate change. So don't ever think it's government's problem to solve. It's the UN's problem to solve. It's WHO who has to resolve it. No, every single one of us, as long as we need oxygen and we need water, it's our problem too. And more, it's becoming a political matter globally, because countries are under a lot of pressure to imbibe policy to reduce their carbon footprints. But here's the thing. The richer countries have a bigger budget for it. Us developing countries have a smaller budget for it. Then you've got us as the citizens who need to decide how much are we willing to sacrifice to have a cleaner planet. So climate change is really something that affects all of us. The third hot, contentious one are elections. Lo and behold, when I read this, I was quite taken aback. Did you know that a lot of the superpowers of the world have their elections this year? Think the US, the UK, the EU, Russia, India, not forgetting South Africa. And as I said at my opening, what happens there and who comes into power and what policies they promote and push through affects every single one of us. Then there's an economic roller coaster that's happening globally. We find that the advanced economies of the world are really struggling. You know, China is sitting on the brink of a recession. They're slowing down their growth, so is the US. But on the flip side of that, they're finding that the emerging economies are getting stronger. Think Turkey, Mexico, Russia, etc. So what, sorry, not Russia. So what does that mean? That means that the balance of power and the superpowers of the world, the face of that, may change radically before the end of this decade. And Africa is right in there. So if you think BRICS, South Africa is a part of that. They are rising very strongly. We might even have our own currency in the near future. So just keep that in mind. Then the future of work. So COVID hit, lockdown happened. Technologies had to very, very quickly come on board and figure out how to work remotely, how to work online, and they managed to do that. But stats tell us that post-COVID, and we are what, about 2 years and running out of COVID now? They say the prevalence of hybrid and remote work is still far higher than it was pre-COVID. So that means people have latched on to this new way of working, to hybrid working, to online working. What does that mean? That means you can be sitting in South Africa and holding a job down in another country. What does that mean? That you're a lot more mobile, that you can move around more freely, and that has a whole lot of dynamics, good and bad, attached to it. The widening wealth gap, and this was very interesting when I read it. This is talking about the millennials, right? Late 70s into the 80s, and the baby boomers, right? Think your 50s into your 60s. They say that the wealth disparity between those two groups, if not generations, if you will, when they were at the same age, is absolutely vast. And what does that mean? That the younger generation, the millennials, are sitting up and taking note of that. So why should we even care about that? Why is that a trending global matter that is on the table? I'll tell you why. Because these young, fresh minds are not having it. So those of us that are of the older generation would do well to adapt and change and widen our thinking to know what's going on in our world. What are our young people thinking? They are starting to come up with a lot of radical thinking, radical ways of resolving issues as opposed to the traditional methods. And again, that can be a good thing as well as a bad. Negative. Then there's imploding urbanization. Lots and lots and lots of movement from the rural areas, from the countryside into the city. Now that sounds wonderful, and it is to a large extent, right? Because coming into the city, you have a better quality of life, you have a more active economy, you have more options. But on the flip side of that, you have pollution, you have overcrowding, you have all the urban issues that go with it. And stats also tell us, coupled with that, you have those that remain in the countryside that still need to be catered for. They still need resources to be provided to them, service delivery, which is already, and this was interesting to read, because you know sometimes when you're in your space, you think it's just you that's experiencing it. Turns out it's not only South Africa that is grappling with service delivery in the rural areas, it's actually a global phenomena. And then culture wars, and this one really is very sobering when I read the stats. Culture wars really refers to polarization in society. What is polarization? It's vastly opposing views of large groups of people or societies. So you get the liberal and the conservative, you get the extremist, you get the rightist and the leftist, right? But just to break that all down, culture wars is talking about the age of the internet. I mean, did you know Google is now an official word in the dictionary? You knew that? Because my mother knows how to use Google. I mean, for goodness sake, I wish she didn't, Nandu, because she just knows everything as it happens. And sometimes when you're going through life, you don't want to know everything as it happens. But here's the point. It has been used so far for great good and for great evil. And that is a very, very sound reason for us to sit up and pay attention and look at it. I mean, social media really decides the way elections go. We've seen that happen in the US, right? Social media can be used to spread good causes, and it can also be used to spread extremist views, propaganda, inflame terrorism and all the rest of it. So culture wars is something that a lot of governments and policymakers are starting to sit up and pay attention to. How can we regulate it better? How can we make it a safe space for people to have their view, because we all want freedom of speech, right? But this is what I find. Freedom of speech is a responsibility. It's more than a right. And sometimes we forget that. Then there's the education revolution. Remember last year at KLM, I introduced the concept of lifelong learning. How many of you have adopted that and have now become a lifelong learner? Good on you. Here's the thing. The traditional model said from 5 to 18, you go to school. From 18 to about 24, you go to tertiary. And after that, you join the working world, and that's the end of studying and learning for you. But the new model, brought on not only by COVID, but more so by the fast pace of change in our world, that people are realizing they need to adapt and change quicker than they can even pay off their student loans, if I can put it like that. You know, the way the world is moving, the demands that are out there, what is needed in the current environment may be very different to what you studied and learned 10 years ago. Let me be so bold and say 5 years ago. So education as we know it is changing drastically, the face of it. And then finally, number 10, and there's a whole lot, but I highlighted the top 10, migration. I have found from our travels and all my reading over a period of time that the world really is a very global village. If you look at any country, and it was said that the UN did this exercise, and they found that between 1970 and 2020, which really isn't a long period of time if you look at it, 50 years, right? They say the number of people living in a country that they were not born in has tripled. And I have seen that when we have traveled. If you had to ask me, what does a typical French local look like? Because we were in France recently. I honestly would be hard-pressed to tell you. If you had to tell me, Dubai, what does a local Dubai person look like? It's not that easy to answer. Why? Because there is such a diversity of people, of nationalists, of cultures, of colors, all living together, and that is because of the issue of migration. Of course, there's forced migration as well because of wars, because people are running away from crime and all the rest of it, wanting a better quality of life, and we understand that. But these are the top 10 burning issues that the world and the economies of the world, the governments of the world are discussing very seriously this year. I want to stop there and go back to the AI revolution, because I know you are all very, very keen to hear a bit more about that. And I'm going to invite on stage right now Eloge, who is a son of the house, who is a subject matter expert in all things artificial intelligence, and he's going to enlighten you more. Please put your hands together for him.
Nish, for the opportunity.
Bless you, darling.
Can't hear myself. I hope you can hear me. Good evening, Dad. There's a reason why I'm holding a phone. Yeah. If you have a thing of a future where machines can work with us as our work colleagues, where machine can give us advisors. This question came up since the 1950s, where scientists ask themselves, is it possible for machine to do that? And what I can say today is, welcome to the future, because we are that future that we're thinking about. I'm sure 90% or maybe 100% of us have a cell phone, and we all have different apps that we have on our cell phones. And sometimes you ask yourself, how is it possible that you just purchase a new car, and then next thing you start having ads about car insurance. You start having calls about car insurance. Because when you post it on Facebook or any other social media, the algorithm knows that this is a car and identify the car and everything. And now your information are now there on the internet. So why am I saying that? It's because we see artificial intelligence as just the ideas that we have in movies, where we think that AI is gonna come, take our jobs, or AI is gonna be the end of the world, or something like that. That is just the ideas of the movies. But in reality, what is AI doing today? Today, AI is helping us to deal with multiple data. So we can take data, we can take, let's say, for example, I have pictures of 10,000 dogs and 10,000 cats. I can teach the computer to understand how to recognize a cat, how to recognize a dog. And now the computer will be able to do that in the future. That can be used in healthcare, where they have some scans of the brain, they can see the pattern of certain disease. And now the AI can actually detect all those diseases easily. So when you look at your phone, for example, if I go and I want to take a selfie, the next thing I do is to recognize my face. So how does the phone know that that is my face? Your facial recognition system that unlock your face. So the phone learns about your face. It knows it's you. And every time you want to unlock your phone, the phone knows that that is you. So the machines are already learning to live with us, learning to understand certain patterns, learning to understand our lifestyles and helping us. So the whole purpose is to help enhance, to help extend human intelligence into machines. Because if I look in the room here, I ask for everybody's name, I'm sure by the time I come back, I'll forget. But machines can remember all the names. Machines can deal with multiple data. So as I have an example in, I think I'm going to show a slide in how AI is used, for example, in education in China, where we have, I think it's the next picture, where it is, the next one with education in China, where kids in schools are studying with certain devices on the head, which are like trackers. And these trackers are actually analyzing the level of focus of those kids in school and sending those data to parents. So you are at work and you know how is your child performing in class in certain subjects. So you can see that there's certain subjects where your child is focused and certain subjects your child is not focused. So from there now, the school can see how to improve the focus of the kid based on the subject and everything. You know, so AI, at the moment, there is a lot of AI tools out there that can be used in many fields. So another example that I can give you, you have a certain business letter or anything. Today, we have AIs that can just take that letter, whatever is asked there, and suggest to you and help you and assist you with everything that you want to do. I remember 3 years ago, as a computer programmer, when you're writing codes, let's say your code is not running, you have to go and Google it and find out if somebody else had that problem. It may take you 2 days to find a solution to that. But today we have AIs where we can just pass all the codes. In 2 seconds, it tells you where your mistake is, and you can move forward. So AI is really out there. It's present. It's among us. We can use it in anything. In anything, we can design anything with AI. We can, if you have, let's say, a YouTube channel, you can design a picture of yourself in a certain outfit. You can design a picture of yourself or a video of yourself. There's a lot of things that can be done with AI at the moment. An example that I can give you about how AI works in terms of the data. So we basically, if I can have the other slide with the data. So let's say, for example, I want to see how much something must cost. So maybe I want to charge based on the size and the weight and the color. But now, if whatever I'm selling has different sizes, different colors, but I can't really get a certain pattern, I can get maybe 1,000 examples. Just provide it to the AI, train the AI, let the AI create a certain pattern and be more accurate in detecting the right price. So what I will have to input is just the weight of something and the size, and the AI is going to give me the price. So AI is really advanced. It's in many fields out there. You can notice it at home when you're watching your Netflix. You go to your neighbor, it's completely different movies. When you're on YouTube, it's different information. And when you're on social media, we have different ads. And we have to be very careful with what we're posting, especially when it comes to different politics of different countries, because now you will apply for a visa to go visit that country, but you've been saying things about them. So somehow we are creating our digital identity out there. Because where we're going to be to a place where you order a pizza and then the pizza shop rejects your order because yesterday you went to a doctor and they say you cannot have a pizza because that information is out there. So that's where AI is going. It's all about collecting the information, making sure that there is a certain digital identity that you have out there. And that identity is going to determine what you can access and what you cannot access. Yes. So that identity is going to be there. Because some countries like in China, for example, your credit score is also affected by your behavior in public places. The robots was read, and then you pass, the smart camera gets you, it affects your credit score. So you misbehave in public, it affects your credit score. So that helped, and that has helped reduce the level of crime, because now people realize that there's nothing that they can do, and everything affects everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloge. That was extremely informative, don't you think? I mean, it's funny, we had a giggle here and there, but the reality of it should have hit home. I must say, though, having heard what he said about how it just, scans you, analyzes you, and then presents you, I now figured it out. My husband has an AI brain. Okay, let's get on with it. Thank you very much, Eloge. That was certainly informative. So I want to now just start unpacking and laying a foundation for capacity, because I started out by saying that this is the theme for the next 3 days for the masterclass of 2024. So what is it? And what is success? And how do you build your capacity? So capacity really has a very broad definition, but I want to hone in on specific words here that I want to highlight to you, right? Words such as competence. Competence talks about your ability. Then potential, maximum amount, aptitude, skill, again, potential, facility or power to produce, perform, or deploy, capability, but the tagline or the catchphrase for me in just breaking down what capacity is, so you know what it is that you're meant to grow, is maximum output. Maximum output. And I can't make it any simpler than that. Maximum output as an individual. What are you able to handle as you sit here today? What are you able to do? What is your threshold? We've all heard the term threshold before, right? So I would like to present to you that whatever your threshold is right now in the various areas of your life, that becomes your ceiling. Just think about that. So if all you can handle, for example, let's say at work, right? You currently, let's just say you in customer management, and you have a portfolio of looking after 10 clients. I'm just breaking it down and making it very literal, right? So if that takes up all your time and you are completely exhausted with not even 5 minutes to fit in this way or that way, and if you had to go to 11, you're going to have a meltdown, then guess what? Your capacity has been reached. What does that mean? Your threshold. So if a promotion comes up and it's a better position, it pays better, it gives you a far greater reach, you get to travel, you get to do all these fun things that go with promotions, but you know that you don't have the capacity to handle it, then if you do still take it, in all probability it's going to crush you. Agreed? So that is how I want you to view capacity, as what is your maximum output that you are able to handle as you sit here at this point in time. Capacity, and I love the way the UN put it, so I took it directly from them, and so there's no plagiarism because they have been referenced. Capacity building is defined, and I want you to personalize it. Even though they were talking here about organizations and communities, it's equally applicable to you as an individual, right? So as I read it, I want you to apply it at an individual level to yourself. The process of developing, strengthening, I love that, strengthening your skills, instincts, abilities, processes, resources that you need to survive, adapt, and thrive in a fast-changing world. An essential ingredient in capacity is transformation. And where? Within. And that, for me, was the punchline. Capacity, growing and expanding your capacity, comes from within. And it goes beyond performing tasks, and there you have it, to changing mindsets and attitudes. So as you sit here this evening, buckle up and know we're going to be talking a lot about attitudes, about mindsets, and you're going to see how it's either been holding you back, it's been limiting you, or it's been keeping you from accessing so much more than where you are. Let's go then to talk about the proverbial term success. Why do I say that? Because I'm sure if we go to the dictionary, there is a definition or two, right? I mean, that's a given. But I have found that people define success very, very differently. If I had to go through maybe 10 people here this evening, and if we had time, maybe that would have been great to do. But I also don't want to pounce on you because I want you to come back tomorrow. So don't be scared, I'm not going to do that. I might just pounce on my team though, so get ready. If I had to ask you what is success, as different as our faces are, we'd probably give different answers. And the thing about it is nobody would be wrong. So what is success? As I said, it's different for everyone, right? Some people see it as accomplishing goals. Good for you. Some people see it as achieving results. Great. Some people see it as attaining symbols of wealth. Oh, one day when I drive a Bentley, then I have attained success. Good for you, right? All those definitions, though, the problem that I have with them is that it seems to imply a destination, like you're working towards something specific. But the question then becomes, when you reach that, then what? Is that the end-all and the be-all of it? Let's hope not, right? Success then evolves and grows as you do. Here's my personal observation and my definition of success. It's the ability to handle more and keep growing. So whatever you're handling now, I want to suggest to you, and I can say this as a human being just like you can handle more. And as you handle more, you are going to keep growing. And that's how you grow your capacity. Hence I said, more capacity, greater success. Less capacity, limited success. There are various areas that we can build our capacity in. There's your mental, your physical, spiritual, emotional, educational, and of course all of them are essential to your overall success. But I would like to present to you this evening that if you focus on the emotional and the mental, it has a direct impact on the others. So purely by default, the others get developed and expanded as well. Remember, we said it's from within. And we are going to go to a 10-minute break so that you can stretch your legs, you can chat about what you've heard so far with the person sitting next to you, or you can make a new friend. I know it sounds like school, but just be sociable if you see someone you don't know, especially if you're from the house and you see somebody who isn't from the house. Show some hospitality, some kindness, some warmth, and I will be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, I trust you enjoyed your leg stretch. I trust you were friendly to someone and made sure that they're coming back tomorrow, NCF. Okay, let's get right to it because we don't want to waste time, and time is of the essence. So if I say then that capacity is directly linked to success, then it would make sense to say that if we want to know how to grow our capacity, we should look to those considered the most successful in the world. Make sense? Okay, so if that is the case, then I went to research what are the attributes that set the highest achievers or the most successful of the world apart. And this is what I found. To sum it up in a sentence, of course there's a whole lot of variables that make the Bill Gates and the Charlie Mungers and the Elon Musks and all the rest of it who they are, the Jeff Bezos and all the rest of them. But in a nutshell, what is the crunch? What is that anchor? What is that underlying factor that all of them had in common? And it was this: their approach and attitude to dealing with adversity. Now let's face it, life happens to all of us, right? It doesn't matter how kind you are, how much you pray, how wonderful you are. All of us go through adversity at some point or the other. Because the thing about life is that it's not a straight line. And the moment you make peace with that, it becomes an adventure. It literally does. I'm not trying to be a motivational, puffed up speaker because I'm not that. I think most of them are scams anyway. But what I'm saying is life really is a zigzag line. You have your highs, you have your lows, you have your ups, you have your downs, you have your victories, you have your failures. And bring it all together, that's called life, right? So if you look at it, if somebody gave you, if you entered a competition and you won R1 million, right, Lishen? You don't need to attend classes and get developed on how do I be a rich millionaire now? No, you just go with the flow, right? You just enjoy it. It's the adversities of life that we really, really need to know. How am I handling it? And how are the successful handling it? Because in its most basic form, we're all human beings, agreed? We all have 24 hours in a day, right? Our opportunities and exposure may be different, 100% yes. But I believe that God has put inside of us a capacity and an ability to do and to be, that it doesn't matter who you are, including your wonderful pastor sitting amongst us here this evening, you haven't even scratched the surface of it. Now just think about that for a moment. What you are capable of, what you can do, not impossible, not reaching and praying for the impossible, that's different, and that I leave to him to teach you. I'm talking about what are you able to do? What is possible for you as a human being? Just a little less than God himself. So if you look, and I assume everyone here this evening are Christian, but if you look at the sovereignty of God and how limitless, infallible, powerful, uncontainable he is, and you think about it soberly and seriously, you are just a little lower than that. Now, if you think about that, ask yourself, am I living, thinking, achieving a little less than God would if he were here on the earth? And if the answer is no, then it means you do have that ability, right? It means that God didn't favor and love Bill Gates more than he does the rest of us, because that would just be downright unfair, right? And I hate injustice. I mean, you should see me when I see an injustice. But so let's just start with that. So the thing that really sets them apart is their approach and attitude to dealing with adversity. So whether you're up there or you're down here, adversity is going to knock on all our doors at some point or the other. The highest achievers have a specific approach to dealing with it. And let's see what that looks like. The first one is they maintain composure. What does that really mean? As simple as it sounds, it's true. They stay calm and composed in the face of adversity. You have a choice, right? Every one of you as human beings have choices. And it's not limited. Yes, you may be limited in the natural choices, but as a human being, ultimately, you have a choice about everything that happens in your life. And staying calm is a choice. If you get a phone call with massively unhappy news, there are a few options you have. You can throw a fit. You can have a meltdown. You can feel that the world hates you, it's targeted you, it's picking on you, it's always you. Or you can throw your shoulders back and you can say, and this is how I have learned over a period of time with my family to do it. We sit down and we say, this has happened. And let me tell you, it changes the whole dynamic in how you move forward from that point onwards. You just acknowledge this has happened. Because after that, it's not why, when, how, what. It has happened. And that is a very powerful way to stay calm, to stay composed. And don't let your emotions get the best of you. And this is what the super achievers of the world do. I mean, life at its best is difficult. I don't think there's anyone here who can say, no, I don't agree, it's a bed of roses. It isn't. It's difficult, right? And it's okay to acknowledge that. So once we do that, then we move into, so what do we do about it? And then you already feel empowered, don't you? Because you feel like, okay, I've acknowledged life is difficult. Number two, I've acknowledged whatever this adversity is, it has happened. So what do you do from there? You move forward. The second thing they do is they think creatively. Now, you know they talk about left brain, right brain, if you're wired this way. That is so outdated, really. It really is about, Nondu, how you want to wire yourself. What do you want to play to? What do you want to develop and bring out of you, right? Because if we just accept you're either left-brained or you're right-brained, which means you're either academic or you're creative, you're either this or you're nonsense, right? And if there's any psychologists in the room, disclaimer, that is my opinion. But it's just about how you approach problems with the creative mindset. What does that mean? You don't limit to yourself to say, this has happened, oh my gosh, we're going to lose everything. That may be one of the possibilities. But if you really think about it, is it the only possibility? Chances are, the more you think about it, the more you're going to realize there are more options to this. There are more solutions. Some are going to take more work. Some are going to take longer to come together. But just think creatively, think broadly. Don't sit there and think my world has ended. And then the next day you're up again. Guess what? Your world hasn't ended. You're still living in it. So best you shake off your boots and you get on with it. And that's what they do. The third thing they do is consider all possible outcomes. And I pretty much covered that already. You know, weigh it up. Okay? And I'm making it literal, but I'm hoping to really just drive home to the heart of the way we think. Is that okay? So let's just say you think, my world's over. This is it. I'm done. If you honestly and truly believe that, Portia, then what should you be doing next? planning your exit off the earth, right? But do we do that? No, we don't. So guess what? Your world's not over. But you weigh up the pros and the cons of all your options. You really look at it broadly. And I want you to see the common thread that is coming through here. You've got to think broadly. Life in its worst moments still offers you options. And it's just a matter of what and how are you choosing. The fourth thing is they overcome obstacles, right? They adopt a resilient mindset. What is a resilient mindset? I won't back down. I won't back down. They are determined to overcome the obstacles. You see, you can camp there, and that obstacle will become your destination, and you'll stay there in 10 years from now, only to find out 10 years later that if you just stood up and walked to the center, you'd be out of it. So can you see how important thinking broadly really is? The next thing they do is they're not afraid to start over again. You see, if you tried something, gave it your all, did your best, and there were dynamics and variables outside of your control, or maybe you made poor choices, you had poor judgment in some of it, because I don't know, I've never met somebody who gets it right every single time. If you have, please, I'd like to make friends with them. Of course, they must be doing something, right? I don't want to meet somebody who never gets it wrong, but who also never does anything, right? Because that's not what I want to promote or to follow. But things do happen, things do go wrong. Failure does come. Failure isn't fatal. Did you know that? Who's ever failed before at anything, big or small? Who's ever failed before? And yet you're here. So that just tells you failure isn't fatal, right? Then they never give up. That's part of resilience. They never give up. I mean, think about a toddler or a little child when they're trying something new. Let's use walking, right? So when your baby is now starting to take a few steps, I think they're such fresh minds. And then as they get older and more understanding comes, then they start getting confined to how the adults around them think. If you think about a toddler, they'll maybe take a step, drop. And then what do? Sit there and cry and moan and I can't walk and why? No, they get up again and then it's 2 steps. And then it's 3 steps. And they just keep going. Now how about if we had to embrace a childlike mindset? I'm not going to give up. If I have made up my mind that I want to do this, then I'm going to do it. And if I get it right the first time, then yay, I got it right the first time. But if it's going to take you 20 tries, and if that's what it takes to get it right, then you know what? You've got 20 different ways of experience under your belt. Look at it like that, but refuse to give up, and they don't do that. The 7th one is they develop resilience. We spoke about resilience, but it's not something that you're necessarily born with, but it certainly is something that you can develop. And how do you do it? What's the first step? Choose it. It's not going to land on your lap. Don't think that every time you fail and somebody picked you up and somebody pushed you forward, you have developed resilience. No, you haven't. What you have gotten is a crutch that is helping you along life's journey. But that is not going to grow your capacity. You got to reach a point of resilience where you say, I have failures, I have setbacks, but I am getting up and I'm trying again, knowing what not to do, right? And then the 8th one, they start again, but this time at a higher level. Why do I say at a higher level? Because they've learned how many ways doesn't work. They've learned how to dig your heels in and keep going until it works. And then they are able to start again. But this time when they start again, they're starting at a much higher level. Their capacity has been expanded because they have chosen to keep going. They have chosen resilience. And they take on more and achieve more. I want for the next few moments to just share a bit of my journey with you, because sometimes it can be very easy to stand up here and to talk about all these wonderful principles and skills and attitudes, and I am sold out to them. I believe them vehemently. You cannot tell me they don't work. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but that's because you're not working it. But I can tell you with the greatest of confidence, they work. And how can I do that? Because I've walked that way. So if you will, allow me to just open up a little bit about my life's journey and share with you, and then you decide for yourself if that finds a resting place somewhere with you, if it can resonate at any level with you, because when it becomes relatable, it's suddenly so much more doable, right? So I didn't get my family's disclaimer for this, but I'm going to take it anyway. So the girls are watching with friends, both in Scotland and the UK, and they said, "Mum, do you promise not to say anything embarrassing about us?" I said, "My darlings, I absolutely do not promise, because I don't find it embarrassing." But anyway, that's just an aside. So the first thing I want to say is, I had a most unremarkable childhood. There was nothing fancy about it. I was a happy child. I was not wanting for anything. We were put through school. I had the privilege of coming home to my mom every day. I never had to worry about where food is coming from. I mean, when it was exam time, I loved it. You know why? Not because I love exams, Narusha, but because my father would treat us like eggs, like you're going to break, like she's studying. Don't worry her, don't give her chores to do, don't give her anything to do. And I used to think, exams should be longer. But anyway, when I say I had an unremarkable childhood, please don't look so somber and feel sorry for me. What I mean is, there was nothing spectacular about it. I can't say that from a young age I traveled the world. I didn't. The first time I got onto a plane, I was 25, and I flew to Johannesburg, and it was the worst weather, let me tell you. It was a storm. I remember it as clear as day, and I had this young Afrikaner girl next to me, and I was like clenching my hands like this, because you watch movies and the plane is shaking and everything's going wrong. And she just said to me, "Is it your first time flying?" And I said, "It shows, right?" And so that was me. But why do I make that point? Because I want to go back to what I said earlier. God has placed within every single human being the ability to grow your capacity to exponential levels that you can't even probably fathom yourself. But what do you have to do? You've got to take the first step. And then once you've done that, you've got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, because it doesn't get handed to you. You have got to choose it, because if it's handed to you, it's going to have a very short lifespan. But if you work on it yourself by working on you, then it's going to have eternal benefit as long as you're on this side of the earth. So that was me growing up, right? And then I met this handsome bloke. But let me tell you, he was really rough around the edges, right? So I smoothed him down nicely, and I presented him to my dad, and here we are 28 years later. But so we got married also, nothing out of the ordinary. And then the real journey began. So we always, and this is what you have to do if you want to grow your capacity. You've got to look beyond where you are. That is the starting point. Because if you look at where you are, you're going to stay where you are. But it's okay to be here, but to keep your focus there. So that is what we did. Two young people going it alone. And as Pastor says very often, both of us left without an inheritance of any kind. You know, our parents were very generous and very kind to us, and they helped us a lot in whatever way they were able to. But to say to you, we got a lump sum and we were able to do this, no, there was none of that, right? I'm painting a picture of ordinary, and I hope you're getting that. Because don't sit here this evening and say, oh, it's easy for you to talk. You have all of that. No, let me tell you how I came to all of that. So tomorrow you can be further and have more of that. So when we got married, I think you heard the story way too many times, but welcome, Zianda. For the likes of you, you're going to hear it for the first time, so it's nice and fresh. Yolan, I don't think you've heard this before. So my husband would always talk about, back then, McDonald's just opened, you had the 99-cent cone. It wasn't even a full cone. It was that big. So you literally got the head, right? That's all you're getting, and one scoop. So we would buy those, and our Sunday outings would be to drive in the neighborhoods, right? At the time, I was a newly qualified teacher. He was a newly qualified accountant. He was on, what do you call it? Articleship. And they pay you a pittance. So I was the doyen. I was earning like double him. But it wasn't much at all, right? So we didn't have faith an entertainment budget. I mean, it sounds so nice to say. So you have your budget, and at the bottom, entertainment, even if it's one dinner out for the month. Our budget stopped at fuel. So there's fuel, there's food, there's, you know, all the basics of life. So on a Sunday, this is what we would do, because we would sit up till 1 a.m. just talking about, what do these people in these big houses do? Like, what work do they do? Like, what do you got to do to live like that, Washington? Like, to drive like that. And he would be fascinated with 2 entrances. You enter this way and you exit that way. I mean, it was far beyond where we were, right? I want you to get that. And so we would drive in these areas, we would see it, and all the rest of it. What was happening? We were starting to expand on the inside. Did anything change on the outside? Did suddenly a halo fall on us and I'm getting called in and told you're going to be the HOD? Never happened. This is the other thing. We had 1 car between us. I taught in Phoenix, which is north of Durban. He worked out in Rossborough, which is considered south of Durban. So that means I had to be at school the moment they opened the gates. I used to be there before the principal. And I used to leave after the cleaners left, because he first needed to finish his work there, which was, 4:30, and school ended at 2:30, and so I would just use that time to prep. Again, what do I want you to see? Unremarkable, right? So we got along with it, we went along with it, we kept doing it. And then at the time, his mom had a freehold home in the area we grew up in, which is Effingham Heights. And she said to us, look, no one's living there. You guys are married, go live there. All you need to see to is the utilities, right? So at least no rent. I mean, that really would have helped and did help our little budget. But as we were driving and looking at all these houses and wondering what they do, and we even got so bold, I would tell you, Zanele, that we would go to open day or show house or whatever you call it, and those estate agents were just so irritated by us because you could see we browsers. There is no way you're buying that house, right? And of course, I want to look in every bedroom. I want to see, what does a walk-in closet look like? Because the only time I had seen it was on TV. And here I was, but I was exposing myself. I was seeing all of this. I saw walk-in closets the size of my bedroom at that time. And it really made me excited that, wow, if they can live like that, and they working hard, we can live like that if we work hard. And that's part of the equation, right? So anyway, let's keep going. So we're doing this. And then as we're doing that, we're taking a Sunday drive, and Somerset Park was just recently launched as an area, and we're driving, and Pastor sees this plot of land, flat, beautiful, whatever. He says, let's buy that. And I'm thinking, oh, we're still doing this thing about, fantasizing and imagining and speaking. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And the next day he goes and he signs the papers. And it's just a miracle of God how we even, got the finance and everything. But the more you internalize and the more you grow your capacity to believe for better, you attract it. You remember what Jim Rohn said? You become an attractive person and you attract success. So we didn't live beyond our means. We had a plan on how we're going to pay the bond and everything. But here's the thing now. So I'm this young teacher. I'm at school. I'm surrounded by these very experienced, qualified teachers. I was drinking at their well every day. How you do this, how does that work? How the children are, et cetera, et cetera. And so just in talking, I said, oh, by the way, and they knew that we lived in my mother-in-law's house, and it was a freehold, et cetera. Teachers have a lot of time to talk, eh? Bless you, teachers. So in talking, it came out that we're going to be building our own home. Now, I say this in the presence of God, the absolute truth. Those that were really good friends with me were actually offended. And they said, why on earth would you go and take on a bond when you can live for free? Please help me understand how that makes sense. And you're on a teacher's salary. And. Be careful people talking you out of your dreams. You know what you can believe for. You know what price you're willing to pay to make it happen, and that must settle it. So anyway, long story short, we went from our Somerset house, which was the second or third house in the area, and then we since moved to the house where we used to go to show houses. We're in that area now. And, it's been amazing. But in all of that, was it smooth sailing? No, it was difficult, because then we got so passionate about the cause and the vision in the house of God, young as we were, and we were taking, teachers get loans thrown at them all the time, Mawandi. So, what's it called? RCI or RCS or something like that. They're still around till today. And they offered me a loan, and we said, yeah, 6,000, take the loan. And we plowed it into the church, and we stood with our late dad. Maybe we were overzealous, but we really got ourselves into a lot of trouble doing that, to the extent that we got an attachment order on the house. Now imagine that. But here's where capacity comes in. Yes, it was very concerning. It was very worrying. I'm not for a moment saying if you get that letter, please go to bed and have a good night's sleep, and in the morning it's going to sort itself out. It doesn't. There's things you have to do. There's letters that pastor had to write and just appease the bank and ask for terms and how. And long story short, none of it was actually actioned because we honored our word. And I don't want to jump ahead, but learn how to honor your word. If you say you're going to pay, pay. If you say you're going to do something, do it, And so you start building credibility. And that's part of being attractive, where you attract success. So that all happened. And like I said, we're now living in one of the many homes that we dreamt about. But I want to go to real adversity now. So when I lost my dad in 2003, I took a whole year sabbatical. It felt right to me. It's what I needed to do, so I did that. And then after that, I started coming around, and so Pastor said to me, what do you want to do? So I said, I have an appetite for business. And so we looked around, and we found this very lucrative business. And so he said to me, okay, we're going to buy it, but you're going to run it. So you're going to buy it, I'm going to help you, but you're going to run it. So I thought, I've got my plug here, piece of cake, I'm going to do this. I said yes. So we bought the business. The business at the time was, I'm just saying this for the purposes of laying the picture, right? So it was a white-owned business. But it was a very, very successful business. The first week, and so part of the deal was for 3 months he'll stay on and just, orientate me and all the rest of it. So he did that, and everything was fine. When his 3-month tenure came to an end, Lindy, Then it was me, right? The first Monday that I called a full staff meeting, nobody turned up. They all resigned, Auntie Monica. No notice, nothing. And my husband's sitting here. He wouldn't let me stretch the truth. They all resigned. And some of them gave reasons. They don't think they're able to adjust to working for a young Indian female. And I respected that. I didn't understand it because I'm going to pay you the same money that's going to pay your bills. But that was the reality. So now I was faced with this, and I'm like, it's an industry I don't really understand, right? So I can learn it, but that's going to take time. And right now, I can't run this business without staff. So my husband was mentoring me through it. So he knew at every instance what was going on. Here's where it gets interesting. So we're sitting and we're having a discussion about the situation. And he asks me, I think I'll remember this for as long as I live. He asked me, what do you want to do? That's not what I was expecting. I was expecting him to say, here's what we're going to do. But he said to me, what do you want to do? So I said to him, I need staff. I need payroll, I need HR, I need managers, I need all of this. So then he said, what's the plan? And we worked the plan together. But this is the point I want to make. I refuse to fall to pieces. I absolutely refuse to fall to pieces. Yes, I battled to sleep a few nights. I did. Yes, I developed mouth ulcers, and the derma said to me, are you stressed? I said, yes. And that settled after a while. But we went, we got staffing solutions, we got the people in, I got the dream team put together, and after that, the business started growing. And as it was growing, it was a team that I had assembled. And that is why it is something from then to now I am so passionate about. If you want me to do anything, please allow me to assemble my own team. I'm pedantic about that. So I didn't see it then, but by being able to assemble my own team, they understood how I worked, what my expectations were, etc. It worked so well. So the business doubled in turnover and in staff. I think we went from about 500 to about 900 at the time. And then one of the greatest contracts that we held, there was a whole big commotion internally with the client. There were 5 of us that were contractors, Laverne. They called all 5 of us to a meeting. And by the way, I was the only female there. So I was always treated like I'm the manager representing the business and not the actual MD, but that's okay. And they called us all to a meeting and they basically told us the contract's terminated. So I'm like, this is not happening. How can they do that? This is half my turnover every month. There are things that need to be paid for that the contract was servicing, you know? But here's the thing again. You see, I was able to handle the staff leaving. That equipped me to handle a whole contract falling away, right? And I'm going to talk about this in later sessions as the days go on about no control problems, but they still affect you, and you still have to choose how you're going to respond to it. So, long story short, I made adjustments, made sure that all the important things were paid, all the people were paid on time, the suppliers, the creditors, all of that was seen to, and we kept afloat. And then, because it was quiet and we had more time on our hands, I used that time to strengthen the structures, strengthen the systems, key people that I needed, even though there was no work, keep them close, not just let them go, etc., etc. Do you know what happened? 2 years later, contracts came that quadrupled the turnover of the business. And it's about building your capacity. And I cannot emphasize that anymore. And I shared all of that with you simply to say this, that how you respond in times of adversity is going to determine how much further you're going to get. So just to recap then, the first thing is, when adversity happens, sit down and acknowledge it's happened. You see, I could have went into a tailspin and like, I have no staff, how could this happen? What am I going to do? Why did this happen? No. No, we sat down, maybe not as calmly as I'm saying it now, but we did it, right? There was a lot of snot and trana, I remember. And I'm like, And then, of course, I needed an outlet. So I said to my dear husband, you found this business. And it did feel better at the time. But the point is this, acknowledge it's happened. And once you do that, start looking at your options. But more than that, ask yourself, how badly do I want this to work? You see, if it didn't mean much to me, I could have said to him, I don't know this business. I barely have a chance to get it off the ground. I'm walking out. I can't do this. And I would never be where I am today had I done that. And so bad things will happen. Adversity will come your way. Big ones, small ones, direct ones, indirect ones, affects you or affects your children or affects the company you work with, and somehow you are impacted. Just pause and acknowledge that this has happened. And look for opportunities to grow yourself. That is so important. Never settle. Our late dad used to say it, you have a pioneering spirit. Don't be a settler. I can't tell you how by taking that, internalizing it, and running with it has really set me on course. If you asked me 5 years ago some of the things that I have skilled myself in and the titles that I carry and the things that I'm able to do today was not even a thought in my mind 10 years ago. But if you settle, then that becomes your limit. That becomes your threshold. That becomes where you're setting the ceiling. You see, it's no one holding it back from you. It's you deciding this is enough. It's you deciding, saying, I don't want better. Of course, there's a price to pay that goes with it. And if you're willing to pay the price, then really the sky is not even the limit. And so on that note, I want you, as you leave here this evening, to do some introspection before you come tomorrow, because we want to build layer upon layer, right? I want to unpack stuff, but I want to give you enough time to digest it. I want to give you time to go home for the next 24 hours and just ponder it, think about it, talk about it as families. It's so exciting to do that, when you talk about stuff and it spurs you on, it inspires you, it excites you, and then you hear how the other person is thinking, and then you share your ideas, and you can actually bring such a richer experience in the way you're thinking, in the way you're talking, and what you're believing for. So here's your introspection. I want you to ask yourself, where am I on this continuum of building my capacity? Where are you? Have you built your capacity to handle where you are? Could you handle more than where you are? What steps are you willing to take to expand that capacity? Because as you expand your capacity, in me sharing my journey with you, can you see, we didn't go with the idea of wanting to buy a house. Did you all get that? We just wanted one day to have a bigger, better, more beautiful house. If they can have it, we can have it, right? And it was in believing like that and thinking like that and going out and exposing ourselves to that, that my husband on a Sunday afternoon drive can drive past this property and say, let's buy it. Now that's what expanding your capacity will do to you. You'll start talking different. You'll start thinking different. You'll start believing different. You'll start being a superhero in what you think you are capable of achieving. And let me say, that's okay. It really is okay. Because if you don't embrace the belief that you are capable of far more than you do, then you've missed the mark completely. So I want to leave that with you this evening. And I was saying to my ladies the other day, we met over a coffee briefing, and I said to them, if I think about what I do in a day, and I actually sat down and I thought about it a little bit, and my husband will bear me out with this here. If I think about what I do in a day, I think in some organizations, it takes about 6 people to do it. But I still go to bed at 11 o'clock by choice, by the way. I make sure that I get my 8 hours of sleep. So now you've worked out what time I get up, so please do not message me earlier than that. But here's the point, it wasn't always like that. I wasn't always able to handle that much, to do that much, and still be strong. I'm not talking about taking on so much that you are neglecting your families, you're neglecting your health, you're neglecting your work. That's not expanding your capacity. That's killing yourself. I am suggesting that you skill yourself instead, that you develop on the inside and get so strong that it just bubbles over and you find yourself doing more, taking on more, achieving more, and you look back and you think, but not so long ago I was dreaming about it, and now I'm actually doing it. And I believe that that's where we're going to get to. And I want to close with this quotation by James Allen. He said, he who would accomplish little needs sacrifice little. He who would achieve much must sacrifice much. He who would attain highly must sacrifice greatly. And let me tell you in advance, working on yourself is not easy. It's going to take adjusting and changing and shifting, and it's uncomfortable, and it's going to feel out of sorts, and it's going to feel out of your comfort zone, and we all as human beings like the familiar, right? If you think, no, I'm okay with anything, just go to your bedroom the way it's always been and change the lamp on your bedside. And when you walk in again, you won't notice anything else in the room. You'll notice that lamp that's changed, because we're not wired to like change, and that's okay. But if you are willing to sacrifice, to grow and expand your capacity, to be more, to have more, to do more, then you'll be willing to put in the work. And I believe the fact that you signed up for KLM this year means that you're serious about it. And you have already set yourself on course to have and to do and to be just that. Many years ago when my children were in SP, I don't know where it came from, but I just coined this phrase and it's stuck ever since. And that is why the words you speak are so important. I would say to them, I raise champions. And I would just say it all the time. And you know, whenever they would accomplish something great or do something great, even us as the parents, they would say, Mom's raising champions. You know, Papa is raising champions. So I want you to embrace that for yourself. You raising yourself to be that champion. And you know what? It becomes a spill-on effect after that. Those who live with you, those who work with you are going to get that splash of your energy, and you're going to be surrounded by that. And all of us are going to be far better off long before the end of the year. On that note, I bid you farewell. Good night. Have a great night. Enjoy talking about it, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.